Okay.
I can see and talk to Ms. Pearson and Ms. Thompson both, so I think talk to Dr. Anderson, so I think we're ready to go, unless somebody knows the reason we shouldn't. Call this meeting to order at 10 a.m. Wednesday morning, August 31st. Roll call, I understand, let me clarify this, that we have 2 board members who will not be in today. And the notes.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Mr. Nemick is not present, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Dr. White is not present?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Mrs. Thompson?
Present.
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
We have a quorum of 3. I call the meeting to order. Action items, who's up first? Carl?
Yes. So let's see. Becky, can you pull up the, I can't read that page. Can we make it a little bigger?
Yes, sir.
Hold on just a minute, Mr. Clemens.
No hurry.
And so I'll get started. Becky, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Board, today we're doing a special board meeting to consider the ranking of contractors for our Midland project. So the background for this is staff is requesting the board approve the ranking of contractors for the Midland Phase 1 project and approve the A101 and A201 agreement with the contractor, including possible delegation of authority to the superintendent and or his designee to negotiate and execute an agreement in a form approved by legal counsel. Our recommendation is the administration recommends that the board approve the ranking of contractors for the Midland Phase 1 project and approve the A101, A201 agreement with the contractor, possible delegation of authority to the superintendent and or his designee to negotiate and execute an agreement in the form of an approval that it's approved by legal counsel. And Becky, can you pull up my slide so I can give you a little further background on this project?
Carl, give me 1 second. I've got it.
Sure.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Move mine here. So just to update the board, our current lease in Midland expired on 7/31/2022, and we did extend that lease out to January the 2nd, I think it was, of 2023, with the anticipation that we would get a contractor and that we would be moving forward with the Midland project and hopefully moving in right after the Christmas break. And just kind of a brief history of where we are. On May the 13th, we had a bid opening in Midland and we selected a contractor. Basically, we only had one contractor bid. That was Tradition Builders, and they came in at $1,736,584.60. The board felt that we needed possibly some additional contractors, so we went out for a second bid on 7/26. And at that bid opening, there were no contractors that participated. So we went back out to bid and we extended the amount of time that the contractors had to put together a bid plus the amount of time that the contractors had to complete the project. That made it a little more attractive. However, we still only had one contractor come out to put it in a bid on the project. And that contractor was Gonzalez Contractors, and their bid was $1,957,924.78. And that's the contractor that we're asking the board to approve at today's meeting. Becky, can we go to the next page? I did want to show you just some quick photos of where we're at. So this was the original layout for the campus. Go ahead, Becky, to the next one.
Carl, how many square feet is that total?
16,000.
Okay.
And there are two buildings. There's the regular, the main building, and then there's a little outbuilding that used to be the youth building. Go ahead and go to the next building or the next slide, Becky. One more. So on this particular slide, it shows the shared space that we would have with the church. Ms. Thompson was curious about that at one time, so we had a drawing put together to show the church would have access to the fellowship hall and then the restroom areas, and of course the hallways getting to the restrooms. Next slide. And in the process of doing our bids, once it was decided that we were moving forward with the project, we had an asbestos study done. Well, actually, we had the asbestos study done before that move. And the diagram here shows some of the abatement work that had to be done for the asbestos. All of the sheetrock, the ductwork, the flooring in most of the areas had to be removed, and we contracted with Banco Construction to abate that project or abate that. So if you'll go to the next slide, Becky. So I included a few photos to show you the current state of the building, where we're at right now. There's been quite a bit of work done in demolition and preparation for the renovation. And so this is the current look of the building. And so with that, Becky, if you wanted to go back to the...
Carl, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Those walls that we're looking at now, like in the picture on the left, or the one we're looking down the hallway, are those walls that have existing walls that have been stripped out for abatement, or are those new walls that will those come out, or some of them come out?
Those are new. Those are the existing walls that have been stripped for abatement. Okay. And most of those, they were able to take those down in a manner that we're going to be able to reuse quite a few of them. There are some dividing walls in between classrooms that will be removed and new walls will be put in.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, that's the, my part of the presentation. If you had any further questions, I guess we're prepared to entertain those.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's when we, or however we decide today on how to manage this project, I'm concerned about the changing the start date from January 23rd, 2023. And that would be my first concern, to make sure that we move that almost to say, if possible, to the end of the school year. Because with the timeline, it's not feasible that we would expect to be in that building by January.
No, we would, if we decide to move forward today, we're prepared to extend the lease until March, till spring break. And at that point, we would move the campus over the spring break week, and the students would start at the new campus for the remainder of the year.
October, November, December, January, February, March. Is 6 months a feasible date to say that we will be ready to move? Do you think the project will be totally complete in 6 months?
The contractor assures us that he can do this job in that amount of time. And one of the reasons he feels very confident about that is because we extended the amount of time for construction. And part of the reason that we were unable to get bids was because of the leadway on HVAC systems and some of the other materials. So by extending the amount of time to complete the project, we've given them enough time that there should be no problems.
Okay, thank you. That's my major concern, is that work is already in progress to move the date. And I have one other question, and that's we're increasing the value of that property quite a bit. Is that correct?
Well, yes, there would be an increase in value for the property.
And who would be responsible for the taxes and all of that assessment as related to this property?
So that's one of the benefits of going into a church type situation, is that we would not be responsible for any taxes. If we stayed at our current location, we have to pay not only the rent, but what we call triple net, which is the taxes and shared fees and that sort of thing. And by moving into the church, there would be no responsibility for taxes. Thus, the difference in rent is approximately $10,000 per month at the church versus almost $20,000 per month at our current location.
Okay. Those are my two major questions as I kind of research this project in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl,
go ahead, Mr. Clemens.
Carl, the $10,000 and $20,000 cost, is that a new number, including the bid that we're looking at today and the abatement cost, and sort of, if that's still you're anticipating that it'd save $10,000 a month with more square footage?
With more square footage. So if you'll remember, Mr. Clemens, when we moved from Midland North, we carried about 200 to 225 students at that location on a regular basis. We're moving back into that area. And right now, we currently only have 5 classrooms at our existing location. And we have 145 kids, I think, enrolled there. And they're basically sitting on top of each other. This would go a long way to help us increase our revenue in Midland, as well as alleviate some of the the pains that we have with overcrowding at our current location.
The square footage in the new location is 16,000. And what do we have currently in the building we're in?
6,000.
6,000. We're paying $10,000 for 6,000 square foot.
We're paying $20,000.
We're paying 20.
Yeah. And
for,
that has actually gone down. It was 22 at one point. If you'll recall, there was some finish out work that was done there that the landlord paid for. So that number has been reduced a little.
Okay. Thank you.
Just for the new board members, Carl, I'd
Yes,
like
ma'am.
to say for the historical timeline of what's been going on in the Midland campus, it's almost been a kind of a disaster from day one, moving into the facility where we are. But we had been moving so quickly until we had to do that. We had no options because we had students waiting to go to school. And now we know that that building has been too small from day one, because it was not built for the capacity of a full-blown school. It was built to house JJAP students, which would have been a very small number of students. We wasn't even expecting 100 students from that pool of students. And so that's how we got to where we are now in that small space, and then we had already gotten out of a contract for a larger campus, and we couldn't afford to keep both of those campuses. So they elected to keep where we are now. And that's the history of how we got to that small space in the first place. And because it wasn't built to handle probably about 75 students. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the reason we consolidated one of the additional reasons we consolidated those campuses is because Midland had a big boom a few years back, and teachers were hard to find. So it was difficult for us to staff 2 campuses. So the decision was made to reduce it down to 1, and also to bring in some distance learning. I think that was actually the birth of our distance learning program, which carried us through COVID quite remarkably well.
I'm on my phone, so if y'all could just increase the volume just a little bit, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Carl?
Yes, sir.
I probably should know this, but could you review for me what the longer term plan, if we develop this site, our relationship with the church? Is the church going to be there forever? Are they planning on moving? Is this going to be a permanent shared facility with part of the building shared with the church? Or
so I can get into that. Our original plan is to actually purchase the church at some point, and we would become owners of this building, very similar to what we did at the Odessa campus. Also with that, currently we have a 3-year lease on this property plus 3 3-year extensions for a total of 12 years. The church wants to be out of there in 2 to 3 years. However, there's no guarantees, so we felt it was necessary to extend or make sure that we were into this lease for a considerable amount of time going forward. Also, the amount of money that we're spending on this project, we would play it very similar to the way we did our other purchased properties, where we would do a 20-year amortization with a 5-year, I guess, call on this note, and hoping that we would be able to roll this into a bond with some other projects in the future, because we do have Fort Worth and Amarillo that are coming up shortly. So at the end of the day, this would be rolled into a bond package very similar to what we've done with our other 5 campuses. This
20-year guarantee on the lease, that I'm sure has some increase built in on the rental cost.
It does not. That was part of the benefits of our going forward is we're locked in.
We're locked into it, and they're locked at that rate.
Correct. And we had offered them a fluctuating rate based on our enrollment size. Mm-hmm. And they came back to us and did not care for the fluctuating rate because they felt like they may get shorted at some point along the way. So they agreed to the $10,000 for the term of the lease, and including the extensions.
If we have it in drawings from the architect, maybe so, that shows what the exterior is going to look like as far as a visitor or prospective student coming up, and what they're going to see as far as seeing the church and what they're going to see as far as seeing the school, and is there any separation? You've probably shown this to me, and I don't recall.
I do have some photographs, but I don't have those available today.
Do you feel like there's a sufficient distinction of what is RMA and what is church and who's visiting?
I do. So we have the portion of the building. First of all, this building is right off of Midland Drive, which is a major thoroughfare there in Midland. And unlike our current location, we have a bus stop just right on our property. So that will help as well. So at the next board meeting, I can present some photos of what the exterior delineations are for the board if you'd like.
You feel like it's there is the distinction of someone walking up is not going to have to ask directions how to get to school or how to get to the church.
Yes, because the sanctuary is at one end of the building and we're at the total other end of the building. With the proper signage, we're going to be very noticeable on that highway.
I saw in the proposal that exterior painting at our option. Does that mean that we're going to paint a different color?
We have not made that determination yet, but that is our option.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Carl.
Yes.
The other two projects, the Amarillo campus and was that Fort Worth?
Fort Worth.
And at this particular time, do you see that it's mandatory that we move forward with those two facilities?
We're not going to look at anything with Fort Worth and Amarillo, probably renewing the lease at this time after this situation here and waiting until the cost of material and things go down. I don't think we'll be coming to ask for any projects. We'll just kind of renew the leases.
And that is the discussions that we've been having around here, is to try to see what is going to happen in the market, because these costs are affecting not only RMA but every school district, and a lot of school districts are putting the brakes on future projects right now.
Or
and as I shared with Ms. Thompson and Ms. Pearson, you know, when we ran the numbers, guys, it would be just as much to back out of this at this point. So we really have one option, and that's to move forward. Tammy and Carl and I visited, and we've Tammy has some numbers if you want to pull that up for her, Becky.
So as Dr. Anderson indicated, we did talk about this a little bit yesterday, and I was asked to look at some of the financial consequences of the project, considering whether we should move forward or whether we should not complete the project based on the costs and increasing with the economy right now. So if we do finish the project, we've applied for the new facility allotment funding from TEA, which will provide us a little bit of revenue for the new facilities from the state. And as Carl has indicated, the building is substantially larger, which would allow for at least 100 more students at that campus versus the campus that we are currently at, which if we were to reach that capacity would result in another $1 million of revenue for 100 students for the year. So that's a substantial increase to be able to serve more students in that area. If we finish the project, we are able to amortize the leasehold improvements over the life of the lease, which we've discussed is long, with the option to renew for three additional renewals after that. So we would be able to amortize that, which provides that we only have to expense the amortization costs of that project. If we were to not continue the project, the result would be that we have to expense those costs, which would come out of our bottom line. So we would have to expense some of that in the 21-22 school year because of the dates of service of when we started some of this work. And the rest of it we would have to expend in the current 22-23 school year. The board approved a budget in the current school year, which has us at a surplus of about almost $68,000. And we are not prepared to absorb the costs of restoring this project back to its original state and not being able to amortize them as leasehold improvements. We would have to absorb that into the budget this year, and it would result in likely a deficit for the year if we did have to do that. So that is one thing to consider. We have 141 days cash on hand as of our July financial statements. It always puts us in a very strong position. We also have about 11 months of reserve in our net assets, which is also extremely strong for the district. The RMA has such a great resilience and history of making good decisions that we have these things to show how strong the district is financially. So if we don't complete the project, we have to consider whether we will have to buy out the lease with the church or if they let us out of the lease. I'm not sure if that would be an option. And we would have to go back to Belmont Realty, which is the location that we are currently at, and negotiate a lease for them, which is substantially higher because of not only the rent, but also the taxes, as Carl indicated earlier. So we do have a higher rent at that location for less space. So we would have to go back and negotiate with them. And so all of those things taking into consideration also with the total costs that I've indicated on the slide down at the bottom for each of the two scenarios, if we finish the project or if we do not finish the project.
Any questions?
Dr. Anderson, I understand right now that your recommendations would go forward with this project.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would ask, sort of trying to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Let's say that, Carl, how long can this lease go for? Did you say 18 years or 20 years?
12.
12 years.
12.
Total of 12 years?
Yes.
Okay. Well, since I was just trying to figure out if we were to be able to purchase this, and I know we can't purchase the whole church for $2.6 million, but if we had a $2.6 million note, we amortized it over 20 years, what's that going to cost us monthly as opposed to the $10,000 a month that we're going to pay rent? I think that we may be our benefit if they stay there the full 12 years, and we just take advantage of this low rent and stay there. I'm not sure when we buy it. I think probably it'll be at appraised value, so we won't have. I believe that was the agreement, that if and when we buy it, they'll have it appraised on an appraiser we both agree with. We don't know what that'll be. I'm sure it'll be a fair number. It's just that I really don't know about that part of the country, but in Central Texas and a bunch of Texas right now, appraised values are just going through the roof. So we don't really know what we're going to pay for it. So I think we should go ahead with this deal and just hope that they stay there the full 12 years. And I think we'll have a real bargain for 12 years. And then we'll just have to see at the end of that 12 years whether we exercise that option to buy it, or we pass on that option and find another place to go.
Yeah, we have first right of refusal.
Yeah.
So
we don't have to buy it after 12 years if the price, even though it may be a bargain, but if it's more than we need, we have nothing to do with it. We have to buy something we can't use at an exorbitant price. But we have the option to pass on it. And we have a good rent for
12 years.
The thing is just determine how much of that saved rent, the $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year for 10 years is $1.2 million. You know, what are we saving? We're going to generate more money. So even though this isn't a great deal, I think it's a pretty good deal for us. Save $10,000 a month for 12 years. That's $1.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we have 100 more students, so we generate an extra $1 million a year. So it's not a great deal compared to what we thought it was going to be, but it's still probably a good deal for us. And if we don't do it, we're just sitting where we are, which is in a bad location and not able to grow and not able to develop the program.
Right. The other worry is as well is that if we go back to trying to find somebody else, I mean, this is already the third round from what I can see, is that you're now risking getting a higher cost on material, labor, and it's just going to increase from that point forward. And not only that, but the time and management of it as well is considered to the cost. Yeah, absolutely.
And
that's very true, Ms. Pearson, because when we first went out, it was 1.5, and then when we come back, it's went up to 1.7. So it's
Can we motion to move forward with it?
I'm sorry.
Say it again, Ms. Pearson.
Can we motion to move forward?
I agree that the chair should call for a motion.
I second that motion.
Ms. Thompson, second from Ms. Pearson. Roll call. Ms. Pearson, you vote?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
I vote aye. Motion carries 3-0.
All right. We will move forward, and we appreciate the board taking this matter into consideration.
Yeah.
Carl, when you get ready to do that painting on the exterior, I really would think about trying to do something distinctive to identify the school as opposed to the church, so that we have our own identity and not an identity as a subset of the church.
I'll send you a photo of our Corpus campus. We have a very bold green that we like to put on the exterior of the campuses, and Ms. Pearson might note whether that stands out or not.
It does, and it's right next to another high school, actually. So it's very easy to understand that it is who RMA is, and the colors are solid. Even the exterior, the way it's painted, I think I agree with you. It's good.
Yeah,
I think I know what the campus looks like. I've been involved in that for a long time, and I know we don't want to do something to anger the church. Do something that would be a something that would offend them, but
Right.
work with them and come up with something to make us distinctive. Anyway, thank you. Have any other business today?
Well, one thing, what we were going to do is we're going to put a sign up above our entrance, a lit RMA sign on the building.
Channel letters for that.
So
I think it would be nice that midway the project, if the president of the board at least make one visit to the site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. There's nothing else, Mr. Lewis.
I'll be happy to, Ms. Thompson. I'm planning on this year revisiting some of the sites and see how things look. I'm in Killeen today, and this is the first time I've been over here in 3 years, and it looks great. They have it in good shape. Yeah. Okay, the meeting will be adjourned.
And I'd like to say one thing in behalf of the principal that's over at the Killeen site. I was driving through the bank, who is the neighbor, and they spoke highly of the principal there and said that he had brought his security over and introduced them to several people. And they were very pleased with how he's handling the community part of his neighbors.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Thompson, for the feedback.
Okay, Becky, the meeting's adjourned at 10:37. And we have a TA call this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Is that right? 1:30?
Yes, the renewal meeting at 1 o'clock. And so we invite all of you on the call, board members, to participate. It's optional, but we welcome you to be there. All of central office will be on. Mr. Clemens will be on. And so you're more than welcome to join us at that time.
Carl, will you stay on just a little bit because I'm having some technical